NFL. Talk about some top big storylines and highlights, and look at the NFL playoff picture as we now see it of the day. For those of you who have not known how I do this, I go and recap the biggest games and look at the playoff picture and look and preview the upcoming week for Week 16, and they're looking forward to that. So let's start in, of course, Cincinnati, where the Baltimore Ravens win 24 to nothing over the Bengals. And the question I have for you guys is: this a good sign for the Baltimore Ravens? Not only another division win racking up, but is this a good sign? And is this a sign that we're going to see Lamar Jackson and his high-powered offense for the Ravens be consistent in the defense constantly getting stops? The answer to that question right now is kind of fearful and unsatisfyingly no. I don't know yet. Well, I'm just gonna say this. I don't know yet about the Ravens. And although they had played a really, really fantastic game in the first half, and in the second half they just completely just dominated. They had over 189 rushing yards. Lamar Jackson didn't have his best passing game. He only had 128 passing yards. He really didn't need to do too much because they literally averaged 8 yards per play. Like, they was just on point throughout the entirety of the game. And they wasn't as efficient on third down and had 30 less plays than the Bengals and had less than and the Bengals had 19 more minutes of time possession than them. But the difference is the Ravens defense just held the Bengals in check, held Joe Burrow in check to under 200 passing yards. They sacked him at least 4 times, and they caused at least a couple of turnovers on the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And we kind of saw glimpses defensively where Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Gillum, where they was able to at least get some sort of get some better production than what they've done for the entire season, and show that their position at this point can move out. So I like what they did, and I like exactly the kind of performance that they played. They blew out the division opponent, and they knew exactly what the playoff hopes are at stake. So next week they play the New England Patriots. We'll really get a good glimpse and get a good chance to see if they can be as consistent as they could possibly can be. But right now, I'm kind of spectacle unsure at this point, and we'll see moving forward if they continue to have this sort of reigns, on the season. All right, so the bigger topic of the day right now is the Kansas City Chiefs are eliminated from playoff contention as they go down to the LA Chargers 16-13, and also Patrick Mahomes ends up tearing his ACL, which he is out for the remainder of the year for the Kansas City Chiefs as they're eliminated mathematically from playoff contention. Lost 16-13 against the Chargers. Defensively, they try to get some stops. They had the last possession. Gardner Minshew came in and fill in for Patrick Mahomes, but that wasn't enough as he threw a late interception in the game that sealed it for the LA Chargers. They moved to 10-4. The Kansas City Chiefs got a lot of issues than just the injury will happen to Patrick Mahomes, but it's worrisome because not only Travis Kelce, this may be his last year retiring. Maybe this last year, he maybe end up retiring after this year. And Chris Jones, we don't know what the status of him, if he's going to be like. The pass rush with George Kalafdis, and Menahu, and Mike Dana, we don't know what the status of that's going to be like. We don't know what the status of, if they're going to keep guys like Kareem Hunt and so on and so forth. They got so many storylines. They got so many different things going on that's going wrong with them. Hey, Angelica, how's it going? Here need behaves. H Costa, hey, how's it going? How you guys doing? But yeah, I'm just talking about the NFL playoff picture, and of course, recapping the Week 15 games and previewing. We're gonna preview Week 16. That's all for the NFL. Hey, I said, hey, how's it going? But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, yes, the storylines to me are for the Kansas City Chiefs that we don't know the status of any other star caliber players. If they're going to continue to, if they're going to stay, their contracts, whether they're going to try contracts going to be up. And so on and so forth. So, and then as for the LA Chargers, I mean, what does this win do for their confidence? Does it do anything as far as push their hopes, to make a postseason run? Does it push any of their hopes to go further into the to go into the playoffs with a boost of confidence? Now they didn't really put the hammer down and put the layer down of the former runner-ups for the Super Bowl and the 7-time AFC champions and 3-time Super Bowl champions, pretty much, that have ended the actual dynasty, the 10-year long dynasty. What does this do anything for them moving forward? For the Chargers, it should. It should give them a lot of praise, get them some confidence moving forward. They got to play the Broncos a second time towards the end of the year. They got to play them a second time towards the end of the year, and so we'll see if they continue to build upon and stack wins. It's been an ugly sort of stack wins. Justin Herbert didn't really have the best game as far as throwing wise, but they was able to run it enough. They was able to run the ball enough with Vital and of course Omari Hampton, and they was able to get enough first downs, and they was able to slow the Kansas City Chiefs down to be able to keep up and able to put some points on the board, get some field goals going, and able to have more time possession than the Chiefs, and was able to get in the red zone. Although they didn't convert a whole lot of touchdowns, they was able to get field goals. So the win against the two contenders at last year's Super Bowl from them and the Eagles, and then even the week before against the Vegas Raiders. Yeah, they're on a 3-game winning streak, so hopefully they can move forward with that. Now, the matchup I wanted to talk about, yes, the Buffalo Bills came back from a 21-point deficit in the second half and beat the New England Patriots 35-31, led by the way of their running game from James Cook, and led by the way of Josh Allen, who figured out a way to get 3 touchdowns, 3 in the third quarter, and 3 in the fourth, and they was able to get over 5.5 yards per play, able to rush for over 168 yards, and efficiently had 181 passing yards. But that didn't matter because they was efficient on third down, 8 of 14. That was really good. And then they was also able to convert a lot of first downs, committed way less penalties than what they did last week and the weeks prior. And they was able to have more time possession than the Patriots in the second half, and they was a lot better in the red zone, converting at an 83% rate versus the Patriots, who only did 66% rate, which is still pretty decent, but still, the Bills have more offense and more life in the second half. They was able to outgain, had more time possession. They was able to outgain, and shout out to Josh Allen and put on his heroics. Put on his Superman cape and did his heroics, and pretty much was just absolutely unstoppable. The Patriots didn't have no answers for his legs. They didn't have no answers for him to get out when he got outside the pocket and outside of containment. Yeah, he was just able to just dominate on a lot of given fronts in that second half. And the Patriots didn't have no answers for that. And the Bills defensively, they disguised coverages. They got a little bit of pressures and had a couple of delayed blitzes to get after it, confuse the offensive line of the Patriots, and confuse Drake May a little bit. So because he looked a little bit rattled in that second half because Sean McDermott and that defensive coordinator made some adjustments. And then Joe Brady on the offensive side made adjustments.
Hello, Moto.
They made adjustments to really slow down the passing game for the Patriots, and they was able to stymie a little bit. Their run defense is very much in question because they really miss Ed Oliver. But if they get the interior front, defensive front back, which I believe they will get that interior front back, and hopefully they get Ed Oliver back before the playoffs begin, because they have a chance to make noise and they have a chance to do things that are unimaginable in the playoffs to try to get to a Super Bowl, compete for a championship. So I like what the Bills is at, and that was a really good win, significant one. So yeah, really good win for them, and hopefully it builds something moving forward for them as we getting later on to the weeks of the season, and hopefully they get back in the division race, because that would be something. That would be something that a lot of people did not expect them to get back into that fold. So a great win for them, and really a confidence booster for Josh Allen. All right. Let's go to pretty much another game that was highly anticipated. The Detroit Lions and the LA Rams. The Rams won 41-34 as both teams pretty much was absolutely unstoppable on the offensive side. Mainly for the Rams, they had over 500 yards of total offense, had over 159 rush yards, and over 360 passing yards. The Lions defense, like I said, it's gonna be a tall, daunting task to slow down Matt Stafford, and not even just that, to slow down the running game, because they were just out muscling him, out maneuvering him, and just made a whole lot of big plays in the passing game to set up runs, and then they was doing a lot of interior, inside, and H-back counter runs to set up the play action pass to get Puka Nacua going. To get Devontae Adams, who ended up leaving the game in the third quarter with a hamstring. Cody Parkinson, they end up getting going for Jared Goff. And the Lions side of the ball, they got some really big plays from Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had 12 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was just all over the place. He was just getting it and diving it and wheeling it and making people miss, breaking tackles. He was just in front. But the story was the Rams' run defense, which was a lot better this week and a lot better previously than what they did, because they slowed Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both down, and they was able to hold them at least enough until late in the fourth quarter out of the end zone. And although it wasn't as efficient on third down, it's only 2 for 9, but they had more first downs, and they was able to get into great positions and great odds on first and second down to get more third and shorts. And when they did, and then of course they was also efficient on fourth down. They had a lot of fourth and shorts as well, so they went for it, and they just executed it at a better rate. They had more time possession. They converted more in the red zone. And like I said, they had more time possession. They committed less penalties. So the difference pretty much was the less penalties and more time possession. And they was able to run it up the middle or do H-back counters and H-back toss runs to set up the play action and get Matthew Stafford flowing and going and really flowing in the game and really getting into it. So shout out to the LA Rams. They're pretty much one of the best teams in the league. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do next. And as for the Lions, yeah, they got to win out. And they play the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, so we'll see where that goes for them. I cannot wait to talk about that matchup, because that's going to be very interesting. And then the Chicago Bears beating the Cleveland Browns 34-3 as they moved to 10-4, and they moved back into the place, moved back in the second place in the division in the NFC top 4 season NFC conference. Caleb Williams had his best game, of his career so far. Sunday afternoon, and that Bears defense was slowing down Shedeur Sanders, forced 3 interceptions, first 3 turnovers. DeAndre Swift had 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was all over it. And the Bears just had over 300 some yards total offense. They held the Browns to only 192 total yards. Was just a dominant performance defensively. They was efficient. They was forcing the action, forcing turnovers. They got into a lot of short fields. And, they just took advantage of the matchup and the mismatch. The Phillip Rivers return for the Indianapolis Colts was short-lived, and short-focused is short-lived, as they had the last possession, or at least they thought they had the last possession to in order to get the late game winning 60-yard field goal from Bradley Group, and to put them up 16-15. But the Seahawks had the last possession totally at the end of the game with 47 seconds left. And they was able to go up 18-16, and then the late interception around midfield to seal the game for the Seahawks. To end up winning 18-16 to move to 11-3. And Phillip Rivers was not as efficient. He can't really throw the ball as much down the field, so I didn't really understand and really get why the Colts ended up wanting to go get him. But he only had 120 yards. And a touchdown and an interception late, and was 18-27, whereas Sam Darnold was 22-36 for 271. Jonathan Taylor carried the ball 25 times for 87 yards, and Zach Charbonnet only 8 carries for 31 yards. Much was the fact that both teams just did not convert when they did get inside the red zone, did not convert in the red zone into touchdowns. Except for that one touchdown for the Colts. The Seahawks were 0 for 2 in the red zone, and they made 6 field goals. The Colts had time possession. They controlled pretty much a lot of the outcome of the game, but the story was pretty much the passing game, and also Jackson Smith-Njigba was a monster. He was an absolute monster out there. He really just did his thing. He just did his thing moving forward. He was absolutely a beast. The Colts didn't have no answers, just like nobody hasn't had no answers for him all season long. He had 7 receptions for 114 yards. There was no answer for him. Like, he was just making plays and making people miss. He just had his way all the way through the game. And he just had his way all the way through the game. There was no answer for him, and there was no answer for the Colts that they could do to slow him down. And especially without Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner, so that was a big, big loss. And the Colts secondary, pretty much got paid for. The Denver Broncos clinched the playoff berth. Moving on, Denver Broncos clinched the playoff berth by winning over the Green Bay Packers. And they moved solely in control possession of the number 1 seed, while the Packers flow back into the wild card at the 7th seed. They won 34-26. Micah Parsons went out of the game with a right MCL injury. He's pretty much done. And Christian Watson left the game earlier in the third quarter with a shoulder injury, but it wasn't as serious. Bo Nix had his best game of his career. He had 23-34 for 302 and 4 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton, who was mainly the big key on third down, he had 7 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown. The Broncos had more passing yards in the game. They ran the ball a lot better, and they set up the play action, and it gave Bo Nix a lot of comfortable. Gave Bo Nix very much a comfortable pocket, a clean pocket. He was able to find and dink and dunk, and take deep shots down the field on play action, and he was able to wheeling and dealing to Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, his former teammate at Oregon. So yeah, man, that pretty much was, those are things that was the difference in the game. And they were not as inefficient on third down. They were not as efficient on third down. Only 4 for 11. The Packers were 6 of 13. They committed way less penalties, and they were 4 for 4 in the red zone. So that was the main difference for them. They converted a lot in the red zone. They had some really long 90, 92, 88 yard drives on 14, 15 plays, which kept the clock rolling and kept the clock going, and kept Jordan Love and that high-powered offense for the Packers off the field. So the Broncos really did it because of Bo Nix and because of their whole offense just really dialing up a great game plan, dialing up a great game and a strategy that really just seeked it out through it. So that was the difference. And last but not least, the Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys go down 34-26 as they are falling pretty much out of the playoff contention right now. They was already in the hunt for the wild card, but they're already falling out of the playoff contention alongside the division hopes. The hopes of winning the division because of Philadelphia's big time win over the Las Vegas Raiders. So they've pretty much fallen out of contention for the postseason, as J.J. McCarthy was carving them up. And although they did slow Aaron Jones Sr. down, J.J. McCarthy and Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor was carving that Cowboys secondary up. Dak Prescott had a decent game, but the difference was the Vikings was able to control and dictate the tempo of the game in the first half. They were efficient on fourth down. They had way less penalties, and they converted a lot in the red zone. And they made a few enough key defensive stops in the game that really sealed the deal and controlled the outcome and the pace of the game, which made the Cowboys pretty much fumbling the bag. They pretty much had them fumbling the bag throughout the entirety of the game, and so the enough key defensive stops that the Vikings had from Gennard, Harrison Smith, Andrew Van Ginkel, and that was pretty much enough for them to seal a deal. So great win, build something up for the Vikings for next year. And as for the Cowboys, yeah, you got to be looking yourself back in the mirror and say, hey, these guys that we got from the trade deadline, they didn't prove their end of the bargain, end of the cut. So yeah, that's a big time blow. And then also next to last, I'll just say this game. But the Pittsburgh Steelers last night moved to 8-6, win by 13 over the Miami Dolphins, as they have sole possession right now of the AFC North at 8-6, and the Ravens are 7-7. We'll see next week how that goes. Although the Steelers had the tiebreaker because they beat them a couple weeks ago. Aaron Rodgers had one of his signature moments. He was 23 of 27, very efficient, 224 and 2 touchdowns. They slowed a high-powered Miami Dolphins running game down from Devon Achane. He was able to get some catches out the backfield, 6 for 67. But Kenneth Gainwell and that running game for the Steelers finally came through and came alive, and that's what propelled them for that win. All right, so let's go to Week 16. I'm going to talk about a few games that I believe are very important. Now, let's start off with the NFC West. So, who will have sole possession after this one between the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks? Who will end up coming out on top? Well, the LA Rams got back to their style of offense. It wasn't as efficient on third down against the Lions, but they definitely played well. This previous week and last week, and the previous week against the Cardinals, where they just absolutely dominated and destroyed them. So I believe they're going to continue to get on this winning streak and get back on the roll. As I believe they'll defeat the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks offense has been very, very pedestrian. They haven't been looking right for these past several weeks. Their offense starting off really slow in the first half, and in the second half they really start to wake up. That's not going to be efficient right then and there. You got to have to get off to a much faster start, and I just don't think it's going to start this week. I think the Rams will figure out. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, will figure out ways to slow the passing game now, and will figure out ways to slow down Jackson Smith and Jigba, and will really make the Seahawks and really make Sam Darnold go to his second and third read, whether it be Shaheed, whether it be Cooper Kupp. He'll be able to slow down Smith and Jigba, and the running game for the Seahawks, I don't think it'll get going if the Rams continue to slow it down like they did against Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I'll go with the Rams in this game. I just think they're right now playing better. They're a much better team. We got the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And this game, I'm going on the other side. Because normally I would have picked the Packers on this run on the road, the cold, frigid temperature. I'm going to go with the Bears on this one. I like what I saw last week from Caleb Williams. I like what I'm seeing from him in these past several games. Yeah, they lost on the road at Lambeau Field. He threw a late interception. But I think that's going to be an aberration. And plus, they're at home in Soldier Field. It's going to be in cold, frigid temperature. Although the Packers do travel on the road pretty well, and they do travel in cold, frigid temperature well. But I think this game, being in Soldier Field, being temperature below the green windshield, is going to be very, very tough. And then also, if you're the Packers, how are you going to be able to get after Caleb Williams without one of your best pass rushers who pretty much opens the game up for you and Micah Parsons? So, for some reason, I just think the Bears will go in there with a better game plan with Ben Johnson. And I think the running the ball with Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift, which nobody has been able to slow them down. I'm picking the Chicago Bears in this one. All right, you have the LA Chargers and the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, this should be pretty easy for me. I'm going with the LA Chargers in this one. Although the Chargers offensive line been having problems. They had problems protecting Justin Herbert last week. I don't think that's going to be the case this week because the Cowboys can't even get after the passer. They couldn't even get after J.J. McCarthy. That's the problem. So, yeah, give me the Chargers in this one. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I got them winning, and I don't even need the points. I think they're going to win the game outright. All right, the game to decide the NFC South. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers. I don't like the way both teams been playing. I really don't. This is pretty much a toss-up, a pick-em game. But I'm going to go I'm leaning towards the Carolina Panthers. I think the Panthers, I like what I'm seeing from them. And I like their receivers who are balling. McMillan is balling. Absolutely, slicing and dicing. I like what they're doing. I like the way that they're playing. Bryce Young is really willing and dealing. He's really just trying to get more forward in the motion. I think that they're starting to hit their stride. And although last week they didn't really end the game in a good fashion against the Saints, so that was a big blow. I think this time around, I think they figure out a way. I don't like the way the Buccaneers. I don't like the way the Bucs have been playing. Even though they do have their starters to return. From Mike Evans, it's the first time we've seen Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka all on the same field with Bucky Irvin. So they will put up some points. But in the end, I think the Panthers, I'm leading more towards them to win this game. And I say this is probably going to be a 23-20 kind of game. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos. In this game, I mean, you have to go in there and prove that you can beat them. If you want to play the champ, you want to beat the champ, you want to beat the new champs, you got to play them. You got to play them with some fiery passion. I think the Broncos will find a way to win this game. I think of the better quarterbacks, I'm probably going to go with Trevor Lawrence in that case. But at the end of the day, I think the defense for the Broncos will find a way to get some turnovers, and I think they'll find a way to slow down that running game, that high running game for the Jaguars, and I think they'll find a way to get some short field and give Bo Nix some opportunities to get the job done. So I'm gonna go with the Broncos in this one. I can see this game being like 24-21. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions. Actually, if this was in Pittsburgh, I probably would have went. I probably would have went on the other side, go with the Steelers. I still have belief in the Lions. I still have belief in my Lions. I think they'll find a way to get it done. Jameer Gibbs, Ed Montgomery will get going. Jared Goff will get going. Amon-Ra St. Brown will get going. Hopefully they'll find a way to get Sam Laporta back. Because if they do, yeah, this Lions team will be dangerous. So I think the Lions will find a way to win this one. It'll be a 31-23 kind of game. The Patriots and the New England Patriots and the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have got to win this one, man. They've got to win this one to salvage their moment to still be finding a way to get into the postseason. So, the Ravens have got to win this one. They've got to find a way to figure out. They got to find a way to salvage their playoff hopes and keep their playoff hopes alive. And for some reason, the way the Patriots blew that lead in the second half against the Bills last week, if they come out into this game with desperation on their mind for that first seed, and they come out in the game lethargic or lackadaisical, the Ravens can find a way to take advantage of it. For some reason, I think they'll find a way to take advantage of it. Take advantage of the letdown because it can let you down. And it being at home, I think the Ravens will find a way to get it done. Be a low-scoring game, but I figure I'll take the Ravens in this one to win it outright. And then the 49ers and the Colts on Monday night, I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. Unfortunately, it's going to be very tough for the Colts to come back from this 4-game losing streak. And without DeForest Buckner, Sauce Gardner, and Charvarius Ward, it's going to be tough for that defense to be able to slow Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson down, George Kittle down. So I'm going to go with the 49ers to win this one, unfortunately. So a lot of Colts fans may not like that, but, yep, that's how I feel. All right, and those are my Week 16 picks. The last story I'm going to talk about is the whole Nick Wright claims about Tim Duncan was better than Kobe Bryant and the Michael Jordan comparisons. So here's what he had to say. So he spoke by suggesting that Kobe Bryant is historically overrated in the conversation. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Excuse me. In the conversation for the greatest player of all time, he argued the reason that Kobe is included in these elite discussions is largely due to his playing style and visual resemblance to Michael Jordan. Oh, brother. Wright believes that the standard for the GOAT debate is incorrectly shifted to who is the greatest player, who reminds me of Michael Jordan the most. The focus on similarity, according to Wright, has elevated Bryant past other highly accomplished players. He emphasizes that this conversation is primarily the factor that fuels Kobe Bryant's presence in the GOAT conversation. Furthermore, Nick Wright stated that he considers Tim Duncan to be a superior player to Kobe, and he suggested because Michael Jordan was widely accepted as the GOAT, people incorrectly rank Kobe higher than Duncan simply because of the perceived similarities. Wright presented as a viewpoint during his appearance on the Adam Freeland show, where he discussed the criteria used in the GOAT debate. And then he says, Nick Wright also says that Kobe Bryant historically and is in the GOAT conversation because he copied Michael Jordan's game. And when people turn the GOAT debate to not who the greatest player ever, but who reminds me of Michael Jordan the most, he says, and then he also claimed, of course, Tim Duncan belongs in the GOAT debate. Nick Wright proposed the thought experiment to strengthen his argument for Tim Duncan's elite status. He hypothesized that if Jordan had never played and universally recognized the greatest player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then a player like Tim Duncan would have been a central figure in the GOAT debate. An idea suggests that Duncan's success and style of play would be more appreciated without the shadow of Jordan's dominance influencing the criteria. And Nick Wright also says in this Anna Freeland show that LeBron James has very similarities to Magic Johnson for his passing, facilitating, and getting other teammates involved. He also said that as well. And then he says, and then he also goes into detail about how Duncan won 5 NBA championships, who matches Kobe Bryant's total. However, Duncan holds one more MVP award and one more Finals MVP award than Kobe, indicating a slight advantage in individual accolades. And he individually argues Duncan's greatness is sometimes overlooked because of his quiet, fundamentally sound style and does not resemble Jordan's spectacular high-flying dominance. By removing Jordan from the hypothetical equation, Wright highlights Duncan's consistent championship-winning career, clear-wise for the inclusion of the GOAT discussion, where he would be judged purely on his merit. All right, so LeBron's reaction to the whole Nick Wright conversation and all that. Okay, so here is my thoughts about this whole thing. Because that was a bunch of nonsense that what I just heard. That was a bunch of nonsense. You know what? Let me just say this. That was a bunch of nonsense of what I just heard. First off, this may have been the dumbest thing I've ever heard Nick Wright say. And I've heard Nick Wright say a lot of dumb things, but man, this may be the dumbest. Now, first off, Nick Wright, what you need to understand is they don't elevate Kobe Bryant historically because he copied Michael Jordan's game or he has a resemblance, similarities of Michael Jordan's game. They elevate Kobe Bryant in the GOAT conversations, you fool. It's because of the fact of his accomplishments. That's why they elevate Kobe Bryant. It's because of his accomplishments. We're talking about an 18-time All-Star. We're talking about a 15-time All NBA selection, first team. We're talking about a 12-time All NBA defensive teams, 9 first teams, and 3 All NBA defensive second teams. That's what he accomplished throughout his entire 20-year career playing for one organization in the LA Lakers. And being one of the only few players, at least 4 to 5 players throughout the entire history. That includes Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Mike, Dr. J, and etc. that have won against top 500 teams in his own conference 25 times. That is what people look at Kobe Bryant and rate him higher than Tim Duncan. And you want to talk about the people that Kobe Bryant played with and the comparison? Like when Jordan, and then he also says, well, Kobe didn't really, guys like Kobe did. It's hard for me to put somebody above a guy who also lost in the first round in the prime years of his career. Michael Jordan, from 84 to 89, was a combined 1 of 9 in the Eastern Conference. Postseason, and was getting on in the postseason with losing records, with teams with losing records. His best players at one point in time, before Scottie Pippen came into the fold, was B.J. Armstrong and Bill Cartwright. Like, what are you talking about? And by the way, since you want to talk about Tim Duncan and the people that he played with, and you want to talk about Kobe losing in the first round, which you solely forget that Jordan was losing to the Celtics. You want to forget that Michael Jordan was losing to the Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, and in the conference finals against the Detroit Pistons. Yeah, you just soon to forget that. But then forget the fact that Kobe did beat Tim Duncan in the 2008 Western Conference semis. That's how they was able to get to the conference finals and in the NBA finals against the Boston Celtics. Did you seem to forget that, Nick Wright? And also, you seem to forget that Tim Duncan was playing with guys like Mario Elie, Sean Elliott, Avery Johnson, the Admiral David Robinson, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Michael Finley. Oh, and you forget, he had Boris Diaw one of those years, Marco Bellinelli, Kawhi Leonard. Are you serious? Are you serious? Do you really want to talk about competition, Nick Wright? Of who Tim Duncan played with? Because guarantee you, it was more help. Tim Duncan just had just as much help, if not a little bit more help, than Kobe Bryant ever did with the Lakers. And that's just a fact. But I can understand why you and a lot of these, clutch sports people that working for clutch sports, that work for ESPN and Disney, that know Maverick Carter, that know Rich Paul, that know LeBron James, and that know et cetera, are gonna flock to your opinion, whatever your viewpoint and perspective is, and look to your viewpoint and think that it's golden when it's not. So I don't understand. I don't understand where are you getting this point from. And then you said LeBron has a resemblance of Magic Johnson. How? Magic Johnson was a way better passer, way better facilitator than LeBron James ever could be. And then not only that, Magic Johnson had a bag later on in his career. And then, if anything, LeBron will remind people a little bit more of Oscar Robertson, but Oscar Robertson was a lot more skilled in his era than LeBron was. And then you want to keep talking about talent, you want to keep talking about who this guy played with, and then getting back to what I was saying about Kobe. Kobe only had one person that was even considered and is as considered in the top 75 NBA players of all time, in Shaq. He didn't have no other player that was even at the time, and by the time he did play with other guys like Karl Malone and Gary Payton, they was on the last part of their careers, so he didn't get to play with them in their prime. Their prime years was already done. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Now but I do agree. I don't have Kobe in the top 5 of my all-time list of NBA players, and I believe LeBron's longevity and his resume is lasted longer than Kobe. That's what I have on my. That's what I judge and critique guys on my top 5 list, is the longevity and the resume a little bit. So I understand that point of why people rank LeBron ahead of Kobe in that sense, and the longevity of Tim Duncan. I can understand why some people would do that. But I will say this, Kobe Bryant was more accomplished than Tim Duncan. Yeah, you're only looking at the championships, the MVPs. Look at the All-Star appearances. Look at the All-NBA first and second team. Look at the All-NBA defensive teams. Look at the other part of the accomplishments and accolades before you start to go in and debate who do you believe is better or who do you believe should be ranked ahead of them. And that's where I just think that it just gets muddied under the waters with these whole conversations. So overall, those are my thoughts about the whole Nick Wright comments in regards to ranking Tim Duncan ahead of Kobe Bryant and the whole LeBron similarity to Magic Johnson. Tell me what you guys think down in the comment section. I've been on here just a lot longer enough than I would have normally been on here. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I will be coming out with some more end of the year list. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Very fun, and I want to thank you guys for liking and sharing and subscribing. Most of all, subscribing. And yeah, I'm out of here. Peace.